I don't think most people realise that actually Palmyra was a unique culture. We're not just talking about a Roman site that could be replicated elsewhere. That Palmyra had such a wealthy empire, which reached its height around the 2nd century AD, that they were, as one archaeologist put it to me, the Dubai of its time. They even found evidence in digs before the war that they were importing dates all the way from Egypt to Palmyra, which is in fact a date palm, just to show off how incredibly wealthy they were. It was one of the most important cultures in the world at the time it was really active, and that's, as I say, around the sort of turn of the centuries BC AD.
Mahmoud, I think everyone who hears this news on the whole feels a sense of shock, but how is it for Syrians to know that one of their treasures has been destroyed like this?
Actually, talking to Syrians and reading what they had to say about this news, you can sense a great deal of disillusionment, feeling of disillusionment, that the fact that some parties to this war are using those remarkable sites as tools of war. I mean, we know that the regime has been more than willing to withdraw its forces from the vicinity of cultural sites, allowing or indirectly inviting some radical elements such as ISIS to move in and therefore cause the kind of political pressure and outcry that the regime is seeking. And the evidence of that was the comments that were put on the internet regarding the comments made by the Syrian official. I mean, this news has been going around, at least in terms of rumors, has been going around for a while. The Syrian regime is actually kind of calculating their moves and the mechanism it uses to protect those regions. And ISIS, on the other hand, is using those sites to push an ideology that is incompatible with the Syrian culture. I mean, those sites are the common shared experience between all Syrians. You know, kids have of all sorts of backgrounds have visited those sites. They identify with them, and to actually wipe them systematically, as we're seeing from what Daesh and or ISIS is doing, is really quite heartbreaking.
Syrians are going through horrors every single day that we hear about, but can only imagine. But is there something quite particular about being struck in this way, by having this ancient part of your civilization destroyed? Is that a different kind of horror? I think people expect Syrians to be shocked at this, but unfortunately that element of shock was not there. When I was following Syrians' comments on the web, I could see that they were referring to the bombardment from the air of Aleppo Castle, which is far more attached to the Syrian common conscience as a nation than Palmyra, actually, because it's inhabited and it's very close to the old quarters. People identify with it as a symbol of the city, symbol of who they are in the north, in the city of Aleppo. So I'm afraid the sad reality about this war, that it took away the element of shock, because so many remarkable sites have been destroyed in a more even outrageous way than Daesh is already doing. I mean, Professor, that is absolutely heartbreaking to hear, isn't it? That the shock is not there, because this is happening to other places as well. Do you know if relics, treasures have been taken from some of these sites for protection, taken outside of Syria?
It's difficult to say. I have heard that in certain regions there are networks of people who may or may not be linked to the Department of Antiquities, who have tried to hide things. I think it's very patchy. It goes from area to area, and I don't think it's going to be actually possible to work out what has been saved and what has been lost until there's some semblance of peace on the ground. And I think it's going to be many years, as with the situation in Afghanistan and Iraq, before specialists can really understand what has happened, what we have left, what we can salvage, and what's really gone forever.
And also the reality, Professor, that Islamic State is actually selling some of these artefacts as well on the black market.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are always unscrupulous people out there who are willing to sell this stuff and perhaps the people who are willing to buy it are even worse, because they're the people who are creating a market here. UNESCO has published a red list of the type of artifacts that people need to be on the lookout for. But the sad truth is we know that there is a large segment of the international art market that just are not paying attention to this. And London, unfortunately, is one of the worst places. All we can possibly do is to put out an appeal to anybody out there. If you're offered anything that looks as if it might come from the Middle East, please report it. Don't just be tempted and think, oh, what makes a nice souvenir? You know, a lot of these things, their value is in what they tell us about the past. They don't actually have intrinsic value in terms of money. Once they're dug up and looted, for us, a lot of the importance is lost. We lose the context of the objects. And all I can say is to anyone that's listening, question your conscience. You're actually robbing from the Syrian people if you buy these objects. And it's not ours, it's their patrimony, it's their cultural heritage. It doesn't belong to anybody else other than the Syrian people.